everybody, welcome to today's video. Today we are looking at a bit of a build. It's a small one, but I ended up seeing Mick's video on that pedal show where he took his rotosphere and threw it in the back of an amp cab and then ran a remote line up front, so he was still able to use the rotosphere as he wanted to, but it could be carted around the back of the amp. And it got me thinking, I have a rotary pedal as well that I don't have in my current setup, but I really do love it. I love the sound. But I wanted something that I could use where I don't have to run extra power cables all the time. I don't have to run a bunch of cabling. I could put it up front if I want, next to my pedal board or as after it, before it. Something very modular. Something that I could put in the amp cab if I want, or on top, run it in the effects loop. Something just very universal. And so we ended up finding a single loop remote controllable pedal. JHS makes it. It's called the JHS Switchback. And when you partner that with their red remote or any other TS, tip sleeve, cabled remote function, especially it has to be latching in this case, but latching, you can control when that loop is on or off. So you can bring in or out a pedal that's got a high noise floor. This thing has somewhat of a high noise floor. And you could take it in and out of your signal path. And better yet, you could put it wherever you want and trigger it remotely. So I'll take you through the build. I'll list the parts all in the description, give you an idea of how I get this thing to be independently battery powered and how we found the parts for that. But it was a really fun build, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. Okay, we get it. You have a laser cutter. But reality being, I did design a tongue and groove box where it was just easier to use something like this laser cutter. Here are all the parts that you're seeing after the laser cutting out the thin pieces of wood that will be glued together to be an eventual box, which will house the battery pack while still allowing access via side port for charging it and for turning it on and off, which is a really nice feature. That's the box being just mocked up. It's ready to be glued together. I could have put it on a piece of plywood again, but then the plywood would have to be even bigger to hide the battery like this base does. And so here's a mock-up just before painting it out. All right, we now have our box base pieces. It's a tiny box, but we're gonna use it just as a pedal base, and it's gonna hide our battery pack. We now have our pieces painted black as well. So we are going to move toward assembling them. I'm not gonna waste a bunch of time with every little joint and assembly, so we'll probably click in and out here of just some status images and videos as we continue to assemble this until we have the little box put together. All right, black box has been constructed. So it's glued together, but it's glued together quite well, so these pieces aren't going anywhere, that's for sure. Plus it's got all kinds of supports around all of the sides, and it interlocks. But one thing that's cool is that you can turn this battery pack on and off from the side, as well as charge it or supply it. And then with this little hole, you can obviously tell, I hope you guys can see that, the lights are on for the battery pack, so you know that it's on. That actually gives you, that's like the life of the battery left. But I mean, I've already tested this outside. It lasts for like 8+ hours, so way longer than a gig. But plug the USB-C in to charge it up or to keep it running. So worst case, you plug it into a normal USB-C charger and you were basically on 9-volt power. Anyway, so this is looking cool. I got to put some feet on the bottom. But now we are up to mounting all of the pedals. So again, I'm going to spare you a lot of the build. We're just going to come back pretty much when it's done. I'm going to put the power cables in, and I'm going to put the pedals on the board. We'll take a quick look, and then we're going to snap back to this being totally done with the patch cables and stuff on there. So here we go. All right, I said we'd come back at this point with the two pedals mounted hard to the base. I mean, by hard, I mean they're just Velcroed, but they will stay perfectly fine. And the power cables are in place, just the DC running from the little battery pack underneath to the pedals. So up next is running the loop to and from the roto machine, and then running basically the cables that'll go out of this box either to the amp or to my pedal board. We could talk about that, but it'll just be, really it's just jumpers from this cable, the loop that's in the JHS switchback, over to the roto machine. And then everything else is sort of external, coming from either the effects loop send and back to the return, or from a pedal board to the amp or from guitar into something else. And then this will be mounted with Velcro, but I could also put this whole configuration right now back by the amplifier and then run just this out to where my pedals are. Limitation being the Roto machine has a switch here that goes from high speed to low speed, like a Leslie does on the speed up and slow down thing. So, you know, you can click it on, click it off. We won't use that, but it also has a soft touch, which is speed up, high speed, and the lower speed setting. So in the future, I think it would be nice to solder in a little breakout connector, and then I could go grab a normal guitar amp 2-channel foot switch, rewire one to be momentary and one to be latching, and then use the remote latching switch, and then use the other part of that TRS cable to break it out and allow it to flick this between low and high speed. So this could sit back by the amp or in the cab permanently, and I would have access to both functions. Right now with the Switchback remote, all I would have access to is whatever this pedal is set at. It would just have access to turning that or bringing that in and out of the signal path. So basically next will be glamour shots, because it's going to be this mounted, the little remote, red remote mounted to the Switchback and putting the jumper cables in. So this is pretty much the last part of the build. Hey, just bringing us back in the room for a quick wrap up, a quick summary of the build that we did in this video. I already had this Roto machine, and what I wanted to do is bring it in and out of our setup, build something very modular. Didn't require extra power cables, didn't require a bunch of extra work to be able to use this and bring this sound, in this case a rotary speaker emulation, into this setup. So I'm ecstatic about the way that this worked out. I've actually gigged this a few times at this point, and it has, at first I was worried about the stability of the wooden base, just like would it survive being in a bag or whatever. It's been great. Not a scratch per se. Certainly has survived quite a few gigs now. But it's great. It can go anywhere. It can go after the pedal board, before the pedal board. It can go back in the cab. It can go on top of the amp. So it's incredibly flexible set up this way. It gives us the option to set up however we want. And we made it battery powered with the battery pack inside of the bass. I've had this thing, I've used it on half a dozen gigs. I've had it running for 12 plus hours ahead of the gigs to see how long the battery pack would last. It's 1 bar down on its 4 or 5 bars of total power. So with this battery setup and these pedals, it'll last a long, long time. So really, really happy with the build here. I think it could be used for a bunch of other applications or something similar, but I hope you guys also enjoyed it. The parts are listed in the description, so I hope it's useful for you as well, and I'll see you in the next one.